For example 4, we're going to be finding the period of another complicated function. However, we learned that just because it's complicated doesn't mean, or it looks complicated, doesn't mean that finding the period is. So again, what is the formula for the period of a function for sine or cosine? As we've always said for this lesson, it's going to be 2 pi over b. Now it's important to be able to identify what b is in the equation. Remember, it's always the number in front of the x. So in this case, my b value, or our b value, is pi over 2. So therefore, in this equation, absolute value of 2 pi over b, we're just going to plug in pi over 2. So I'm going to get absolute value of 2 pi divided by pi over 2. And we're going to solve that out. Now we're going to use keep, change, flip. So we're going to keep the top 2 pi. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal of pi over 2, which is 2 over pi. I'm going to write the first one, 2 pi over 1. The pi's are going to cancel, 2 times 2, and this is an absolute value. 2 times 2 is 4, and the absolute value of that is still 4. Therefore, our period for the function, let's do red this time, the period is going to be 4. It's going to take 4 units for the graph to repeat itself. Now again, I'm going to visually show why that is. We're going to see the 2, the 1, and the negative 3 have nothing to do with the period, and then in fact it is 4. Okay, so for this graph I actually was not able to make my c value 1, but I kept everything else the same. So we've got f of x equals 2 sine of 1/2 or 0.5 pi x, or pi over 2, it's the same thing, x, plus, again I wasn't able to make that plus 1, but I will just keep it as plus 1 pi, plus a negative 3. So what you see then is, let's start at 0. It's usually a good starting point. The y value is negative 3. Now how long does it take before the graph repeats itself? Well, before I get to that negative 3 again, where the wave is going down, it took 4 units. Therefore, visually I can see that my period is 4. And again, it has nothing to do with the c value, for example. If I just change the c, we can see that the period is still 4. If I change the d value, all it does, this number at the end, is just move the graph up and down. And if I change my a value, it does stretch the graph, but the period still, the distance between 2 points where the graph repeats itself is still 4. So, in the next video we will show exactly why that is algebraically, but for now we can easily see visually and algebraically that f of x equals 2 sine of pi over 2x plus 1 minus 3. The period is indeed absolute value of 2 pi over b, which ends up being 4. If you have any other questions about this example, let me know.